Did the Japanese Prime Minister visit Ukraine on the White House's request? Well, some believe Biden may have influenced Kishida's decision to become the first post-war Japanese leader to visit a conflict zone. Even if that's true, the question one must ask is, why would Joe Biden do that? Ask Fumio Kishida to travel to Kiev. And the answer is rather obvious. To shore up support for Ukraine, to project to the world that the war in Ukraine affects everyone, not just the West. And how does that help Joe Biden? Well, in more ways than you can think. You see, history is proof that wars have always helped the politics of American presidents. Not just that, wars have also helped them secure a second term. Let's just take a walk down the lanes of history. You will see that James Madison was re-elected during the 1812 war. Lincoln was re-elected during the Civil War, as was Franklin D. Roosevelt during the Second World War. Lyndon B. Johnson sent troops to Vietnam, and he was re-elected. And then came in Richard Nixon. The Vietnam War was still on. Nixon was re-elected. It's another story that his term ended early, courtesy the Watergate scandal. Have a look at examples as recent as George W. Bush. He invaded Iraq, and the American votes re-elected him to office with 51% to 48%. And during his second term, America invaded Afghanistan. Well, too bad the American Constitution does not allow the president to run for a third term. But what it does allow is presidents to run for a second term. And guess who is up for re-election? President Joe Biden. Will he get America directly involved in the Ukraine war for the sake of securing another term? Ideally, he should not. Biden is a career politician, and he knows better. Biden knows that a war can do America no good, especially given the current financial crisis. But you know what they say, ambition is a dangerous weapon. So Republicans are not taking any chances at all. They are doing all that they can to take away war powers from Joe Biden. What am I talking about? A bill has been introduced in the US Congress. This bill strips Biden and US presidents after him of the power to conduct military operations without the approval of the Congress. Because currently the US president can unilaterally wage war or order military action, as Americans like to call it. And this power was given to American presidents in the year 2001, following the 9/11 attacks. The justification was rather simple. The president has the responsibility to defend America, and hence he should be given the power to order a military action. And given the post-9/11 scenario, AUMF, or the Authorization for Use of Military Force, may have made sense. But what about the years that followed? Former President Barack Obama used the power to justify the strikes in Iraq and Syria. And after Obama, Trump cited AUMF to justify the strike that assassinated the Iranian general Qasem Soleimani. Could Joe Biden use the AUMF to move the American troops to Ukraine? Well, here's what the White House has to say. I'm quoting. President Biden remains committed to working with the Congress to ensure that outdated authorizations for the use of military force are replaced with a narrow and specific framework more appropriate to protecting Americans from modern terrorist threats. Towards that end, the administration will ensure that Congress has a clear and thorough understanding of the effect of any such action and of the threats facing US forces, personnel, and interests around the world. In other words, Joe Biden supports repealing AUMF. And while that is the politically correct thing to do, how will it impact Biden's political ambitions? Also, it's not just the US presidents, after all, who have historically benefited from wars. Defense companies have profited big time as well. And just to understand this, you don't need a recap of history. Let me just point you to a report that was published earlier today. What does the headline say? Ukraine war propels arms maker Rheinmetall into DAX index. DAX is a German stock market index. Have a look at the subheader now. It clearly says that since Russia's invasion of Ukraine last year, the German arms manufacturer has seen its share price more than double. And I don't know how many of you know this, but Rheinmetall is the same German company that produces the cannon for Leopard 2 tanks. And not too long ago, there was a very public debate around these tanks and whether or not countries would be willing to send them to Ukraine. And thanks to that, Leopard 2 became a household name. And the result, by the way, was visible in Rheinmetall stock prices as well. They have climbed 153% since the start of the Ukraine war. And Rheinmetall is not an exception. Ever since the war broke out in Ukraine, global defense companies have received multifold orders and their stock prices have been soaring. Sweden's Saab has seen shares rising 170%. Hensoldt, 131% since the 24th of February 2022. UK's BAE Systems has seen stocks climb 50%. In news, we often say that this is the kind of story that writes itself. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the updates on the move.